Good evening. I hereby call to order the March 22nd, 2018 meeting of the Gaithersburg Historic District Commission. Can we have a roll call, please? Starting on my left.
Sure. Frank Johns.
Gregory Mann.
Mark Feinstein.
Mary Jo LaFrance.
Dean Ventola.
John Roddy.
Robert Love.
Chris Berger.
Thank you. Did everybody look at the minutes from the last meeting, I guess 2 months ago?
Yes.
Does anybody have any thoughts or concerns or changes they would like to make? Nope. Okay, then I guess I'll have a motion. If somebody have a motion. Okay, anybody second? Very good. All right, all in favor of passing the minutes? All right, it carries unanimous, 2-4-5 to nothing. Okay, next then, also I want to say that we do have a quorum, and Commissioner Love is full commissioner tonight. Then next I would like to read the Historic District Commission's preliminary statement, and it is as follows. This commission is empowered to meet and act under Article 12 of the City Code of Gaithersburg. The technical qualifications of the staff of this commission and the members of the commission are on file with the City of Gaithersburg, are available on request to any applicant, and are hereby made a part of the legal record of each and every application heard today. Each application heard today is considered on its own merits and is not to be considered as establishing a precedent for any other application. Next, what I'd like to do is make one slight change from what we've done in the past. I'd like to ask if we have any conflicts of interest for any of the items that we're going to be talking about tonight.
I just want to disclose that I'm a neighbor to 102 Chestnut Street. We are in the same historic district and on the same street.
Okay, so that is for HIST 7859-2018?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Any others on the list that you would like to declare?
No.
No? Okay, very good. All right, next then, I guess for the first HIST, do we have a presentation from staff?
We do. The subject property is a two-story Queen Anne style residence that was constructed circa 1900. 102 Chestnut is zoned R90, medium density residential, and is contributing to the Chestnut Mean Historic District. The applicant seeks to remove a 15-foot tall American holly tree, which is right here in the center of the photo, which is located in the rear yard. According to the applicant, the tree needs to be removed for safety reasons because the tree blocks the view from the kitchen window, which is obstructed by the tree here.
Chris, real quick.
Excuse me.
I think you need to switch the monitors.
Oh. I can do that.
There you go. Thank you.
So I will start over. The subject property is a two-story Queen Anne that was constructed circa 1900. It's zoned medium-density residential and is contributing to the Chestnut Mean Historic District. The applicant seeks to remove a 15-foot tall American holly tree in the rear yard, which is located here. And there's the tree in the center of the photo. According to the applicant, the tree needs to be removed for safety reasons because it blocks the view from the rear kitchen window, and there's a child's play equipment on the other side of the tree here. Here's additional photos of the tree, a different perspective. And here's the tree in the center here. And here's a close-up view with the soccer ball for perspective. The tree was not recorded in the 1999 tree inventory for the Gaithersburg Historic District, so a replacement tree is not required. And I can answer any questions on behalf of the applicant.
The only question I have, I guess everybody's saying no, they don't have any questions. The only question I have is I read somewhere in the application that the tree was split, but I couldn't see any photo of it being split. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I think this would be the best photo. He's talking about different stems coming up from the trunk, so at approximately the location of the soccer ball, there's a couple of stems that come off the main trunk off the ground here. So that was.
It's not split as damaged. It just has a crotch and then two.
Oh, okay. All righty. Okay. No other questions from commissions? All right. I guess what we could do is next is hear from anyone in the audience who is in favor of removing the tree, having this pass. I see that there isn't anyone. Is there anyone who is opposed to this? No, there is nobody opposed to it. And then I would assume we don't have any other thoughts or questions after nobody spoke on anything for or against. So I guess we can start with you, Mark, and just say your thoughts.
I have no issues with the removal of the tree.
It's difficult for me because, you know, I'm an advocate for trees and there's nothing wrong with this tree. But I'm sure that it sprung up on its own and it's not historically important, so.
Okay, I'll go next. I think it's a great-looking tree, been in a really bad place for the house. So I think it just splits the entire site down the middle, no matter which way you look at it. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't think it's important to save. It'll give them a whole lot more use of their land, and there are plenty of trees on the property. So I wouldn't think that needs to come. Needs to remain, and it's not required, since it wasn't a required tree, to replace it.
I would totally agree, and further, I think it is true that this tree obstructs the view of any child playing on the equipment in the backyard or anywhere in the backyard, almost totally. You're right, it's a good-looking tree, but it's in the wrong spot. And it's about 15 years old, and they can become attached to another tree very easily.
Good point. All right. Robert?
I agree with everybody else. Good-looking tree, but having young children, they can be staying in front of me, and I still can't see them. So any sort of obstruction needs to go. But no, I totally agree with the removal of it.
All right. Well, then I'll call for a motion. Does anybody want to have a motion?
I would move that based on the exhibits submitted and the staff report, findings, and recommendation, the Historic District Commission grant HIST 7859-2018 to remove the tree, finding it be fully in compliance with Section 24-227.2 of the City Code, and I would attach no conditions thereto.
Second, anyone?
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, 5-2, nothing. All right. Next item on the agenda is a courtesy review. It'll be SP 78-05, 2017. And does staff have?
We do. My colleague Jasmine Forbes.
Good evening.
Hello,
Good
how
evening.
are you?
I'm good, how are you doing?
Welcome back.
Thank you. So this is a courtesy review for the properties located at 315 East Diamond Avenue and 5 South Summit Avenue. This application is before the Historic District Commission because the properties are located within the Old Town courtesy area. Pursuant to Section 22-227.4, the Historic District Commission may review and make recommendations to the Planning Commission on applications for site development approvals. So some little history on this site. So the property that I outline on to the south was approved by the Planning Commission in 2007 for the Rolling Stock Park, and prior to the Rolling Stock Park, the land was served as a siding track for the freight shed. And to the north, which is this part, it's the 315 East Diamond Avenue. In 1973, the property was approved for a 17,000 square foot two-story retail office building, and I have a photo of what it used to look like before it was demolished in 2009. So the applicant that's here this evening is requesting to construct a construct a 6-story mixed-use building, which includes 8,663 square feet of ground floor retail, 5-story multifamily apartments, and associated 3-level garage. So to accommodate this development, the city had provided additional land. So what's going to happen is the line adjustment for this property is going to be adjusted. So instead of having that angle shape that you saw right here, this line is going to be the new property line, and that's going to require the relocation of the bud car and the track. Just note that the applicant will submit a historic area work permit for that relocation of the bud car and any work that's being done in the plaza area. And I will have the architect, Steve, who's going to go over the application in detail.
Thank you, Jasmine. Good evening, members of the commission. Thank you for the review this evening and your comments in advance of the comments. As Jasmine already pointed out, there's a proposed 6-story building. You'll see that that's an L shape.
Excuse me, could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
That's okay.
Steve Fotiu. I'm with the Eisen Group Architects.
Continue, please, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as Jasmine mentioned, it's a proposed 6-story building. You'll see in the site plan here, it's an L shape. What that does is it provides a facade that faces East Diamond, but also a facade that would front onto the new plaza. In addition, what the L shape does is it allows us to sort of shield or hide the parking garage from East Diamond, which is shown parallel to the train tracks on the rear of the property. Just a little bit of a blow up into the site plan on the ground floor to show you some of the proposed ground floor uses. Where the property faces to the west to the plaza, there is proposed retail, and we're setting up that retail for the potential for it to be a restaurant. So providing black iron. We haven't gotten into the amount of detail to locate grease traps and things like that, but that's the intention will be to do all of that to set it up as a restaurant opportunity. Then there is retail that faces East Diamond as well. And if I can just use the mouse here as a cursor, those two retail spaces are separated by the entrance to the residential lobby for the residences that would be above, right here. And then finally moving to the east edge of the property is proposed the loading dock, some back of house spaces, and then a drive lane that takes vehicles back to the parking garage. Any questions on the ground floor plan before I move on?
Where was the loading dock again? I'm sorry.
It's right here where the cursor is. A truck is shown in plan right there.
Okay.
Is it difficult to see from your screen?
That's okay.
Okay.
That might be just me.
Will that have garage doors?
Yes, it will, indeed. I'll show you elevation soon and you'll get to see that, but just
Wonderful.
obviously the immediate context, the train station, the museum, and then the Bud car, which I don't have a photo of, but you know, the train car, or the engine. And the reason that I wanted to pull these up is that in our elevations, we've taken care to try to match brick colors, to try to emulate the cream colored trim. What we're intending to do is that on some of the upper floors, some of the proposed materials would match in color, and so we very much intend to create a building that uses similar materials and matches the colors. And then also the intent is to introduce some black metal details that would also tie it to the engine as well. So the north elevation that faces on East Diamond is the lower elevation. And in general, if I could speak a little bit about the character of the design, the intent is to create a weight-bearing masonry facade, which then has these bay window projections just to create a cadence and to break down the scale of the building vertically. Horizontally, we'd like to break down the scale of the building by, at the top of the 4th floor, to stop the brick and basically have a cornice line there and transition to another material, and that's where I mentioned the cream colored. We would try to tie in to the trim work from the train station and the museum. And then again, in order to really try to break down the scale even more, the top floor would be slightly darker and closer to the color of the shingled roof in order to start to try it in. I stopped short of saying almost like a mansard roof, but the desired effect would be to try to tie in that top floor to the roof, helping to break down the scale of the overall facade. The one element that you see that breaks the cornice line is intended to be a vertically denoting the residential entrance in this case. There are proposed inset balconies that will also help to modulate the facade, and those are shown sometimes in the bay windows, but then also in between the two sets of bay windows over here and over here. Earlier, the question about whether or not there's a roll-up door, the intent is very much to have a roll-up door on the loading dock. I'll continue through all the elevations and then I can come back and answer any questions. The south elevation here on the top of the image is shown from behind the garage. There's later in elevations, you'll see an elevation where the garage is peeled away and you can see the building a little bit better. But the intention is to have a brick texture on all of the garage spandrels. So again, an attempt to mitigate the amount of materials or concrete or materials that would not be complementary to the existing context. So here we would be looking to have a brick texture on the spandrels. The top facade here is the one that faces west towards the plaza, and again you can see that the storefronts and the canopies on the ground floor are really geared towards having a restaurant that would have large operable either garage doors or large operable storefront that would allow for an inside-outside relationship to the plaza. And you see the same language turning the corner here with the bay windows from the north elevation. I want to point out one detail where we attempted to separate the garage from the overall mixed-use building, because the one will be load-bearing masonry and the garage will be precast concrete with a brick texture, and so we didn't want to try to put two brick textures right next to each other and risk them not matching. So you'll see specifically, I just want to point it out because it's a design detail where the proposed fiber cement facade from the 5th floor turns the corner and comes down the facade right here to separate the two brick textures. And then jumping to the opposite side, the east side that faces the Winkler property to the east, you see that the end of the building, even though it's a double-loaded residential corridor, and typically you in many cases don't have a window in the corridor, we thought it was necessary in order to create some interest on that end elevation. Without that window, I think you'd probably advise us to add a window there, but because the scale and the scale and the massing of the building really needs to be broken down on that facade. And you'll notice just from this shadow line that there is a cantilevered portion. If I go back to the north elevation, you'll see that right here. That's in order to allow for the full width of the drive lane and for an egress sidewalk to bring people to East Diamond. But there's only a 15-foot side setback here, so that's why we have that sort of cantilevered condition. And you can see that implied here with the shadow line. And then just continuing on with the elevations, this is essentially the two elevations that face or that are hidden by the garage. So on the south elevation that comes all the way down to the ground, there are proposed walk-up residential units and an entrance into the rear of the lobby right here. So if I jump back to the ground floor plan, you'll find that there's a street entrance and also a rear entrance to the same lobby space, which would be a connection for residents from the parking garage directly to the lobby. And there are 4 walk-up units, and we've attempted to group together the entrances and sort of take the language of the bay windows that occur on the north, the east, and the west elevations and use that as a way to delineate the residential entrances on the ground floor. I'll also point out that the elevation, the short leg of the L that comes and touches the garage, that is visible from where we are here, in fact, but it will be, because it's a visible element also from the plaza, we felt it was important to have windows again on the butt end of the residential building, but also to delineate an entrance, even though it's sitting atop the garage. So that's what this element right here is doing. And then finally, kind of just for posterity, the elevation on the garage that faces the building to just show again that we are intending to have the brick texture on all of the elevations of the garage. I didn't mention this during the elevations, but I wanted to point out that we've been engaged with the city in talking about the public art that will be provided on the building. And specifically, we're focused on the side of the building that faces the plaza. It seems like the right place to do a couple of installations there. And so what we've agreed to and have sort of, what you're seeing here is the elevation that was used in meeting with, I forget her name, I apologize.
Shelley.
Shelley, thank you. And so one is to create a decorative stair, and the idea there is to have a mosaic design that's inlaid into the risers of the stair. So from the plaza, from the train station, you would see that, and hopefully that would be a welcoming, or at least certainly something that would be a vibrant and catch your attention, as well as a low planter wall that's at about 18 inches off the ground, so that there's an opportunity for seating at that location. And then the element that's really meant to be more of a beacon is this vertical fin that would be illuminated as well. And so the example that Shelley had provided us is in Baltimore, this museum, which is a really quirky museum if any of you have seen it, but this blade element is really quite attractive. It's sort of a mosaic glass internally illuminated blade, and we thought that would actually be a great idea to have it on the building, to act as a beacon, as kind of almost like a branding element for both the plaza and the building, for the sort of the district there, and that a local artist or an artist that the public art group. Is there going to be a competition? Yeah. So it's kind of an exciting opportunity that this is just meant to be a placeholder, but that an artist would have an opportunity to propose something that acts like this. So that's more of a high-level description, and would gladly answer any questions that you have now.
Well, what we could do is ask questions now, but I could also ask for the audience, then we can get into that.
Sure.
Okay, let me just see if we can pull that together. Are there anyone in the audience who wants to speak on behalf of this? And I see none. And is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak against this application? And there are none. Okay, all right, so I guess we can start with you, Robert, your thoughts and questions.
Sure. Thanks again for coming in and presenting this. This is going to be exciting for the area. Kind of regenerates Old Town a bit with what you're bringing in. I like how you've tied in kind of the feel of the train station, kind of the old feel, and also kind of a modern look to it. Because if you go up and down Diamond, you'll find kind of a mixture of both throughout the whole area. There's really nothing like static. This is what this looks like. It really expands. Couple things. The signage that you have for the retail, is there going to be a specific? Is it going to have to look a certain way, or is it going to be allowed? Is anything going to be allowed within it? Do you guys have parameters? Is it all going to be kind of the same across?
That's a very good question. As part of our site plan submission, we actually did submit signage guidelines. So the intent is to provide flexibility to tenants so they can have their identity, but also give them guidelines for sizes, for the type of signage that would be allowed. But stylistically, there isn't a desire to sort of pin them in. The desire is for the retail tenant to have their identity.
Okay.
No, I'll add real fast to that. In the CBD zone, there is a requirement for the Planning Commission to approve a sign design guidelines. So that is currently under review by staff and would be presented to the Planning Commission when they get to that point.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I saw that, there's kind of a planters around kind of a little courtyard, not really area, facing the plaza. Is there going to be anything to the rear there between the garage and the lobby area and the possible walk-ups?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there is a communal recreation space, or not, it's not really recreation space, but a communal gathering space there. The intent is, a small courtyard. The intent is to provide some furniture as well as some grills in that location. And really, I think would be activated by the fact that the lobby opens out directly. And then there's a walkway that connects between that and to the east, which would provide access to the walk-up units. Finally, the gym is proposed at this location as well, and the desire is to have glazing there to sort of have a connection between the two.
Okay. I'm just curious, the parking, is the first level going to be for retail and the rest of the level going to be for residential?
That's a good question as well. The intent is to have some public parking there. In fact, I think, is it the majority of the spaces are public at this point?
It's flex on the first floor. Right?
There are some flex spaces, but there are also some dedicated spaces that would be open to public parking.
Do you have a number?
Unfortunately, this drawing doesn't specifically note which ones, and
The traffic plan. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think we have a slide this evening that has that information on it.
No,
Do you
not
think?
on this one, but,
Yeah, unfortunately.
the majority of the parking spaces are gonna be for the retail, but, they identified kind of these spots as more for the retail, for the walk-ups, or for any, additional for the residents.
There are some spaces for residential down here, but I
Yeah.
think the majority is retail and public.
Okay.
And then you can see here where the gate arms restrict access to the upper floors. The upper floors are specifically residential parking.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, John?
Thank you. Steve, I think there is some concern about the relative height of this structure, 6 stories, in an area where where there isn't anything of that size right now on this side of Diamond. I'm sensitive to the relationship between the relatively small footprint of what you're proposing and the economics involved, how tall you have to make the building to make it economically feasible. Now, economic feasibility is not within the purview of this group, but any deleterious effects on the nature or the character of that immediate area might be. And on balance, I'd have to say I don't see any such negative effect on the area with what you're proposing. As a matter of fact, you're reflecting in some ways the building that's immediately across Diamond from you. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to go last because I got a laundry list here that I want to address. So, Mary Jo, you're next.
Well,
please.
I am counting on my architects on the board to help with this. I applaud your intention to mimic the colors of the station in the Bud car, although I have some concerns about the architecture actually being too modern, and was hoping you might, take lesson of some of multiple choices of architecture that Old Town does have. Usually, even new construction does reflect the more historic presence. And I'm concerned that this building lacks depth and creativity. So that's my 2 cents.
Yes, I'm so sorry, Mark. Please go
Okay.
ahead.
Before I get started, just on questions about the design. How many dwelling units is it?
109.
109. Okay. I guess if I look at the elevations you proposed, I think the most successful, in my opinion, is the west one, the one facing the plaza. And part of the reason is the way the brick meets the retail, and you have that somewhat on the diamond elevation, but there's that big gap in the middle that kind of almost makes the feeling of the masonry as a masonry building. It makes it almost feel like it's floating a little bit. And I was wondering if there's any way you can consider adjusting the rhythm a little bit, where now you have brick, bay, brick, and then a triple rounded bay, maybe then do a bay and then a brick, and carry that down a little bit, just to not have that middle section so light in terms of the look of it.
That black horizontal.
Yeah.
That heavy.
Sorry, introduce yourself.
I'm sorry. I'm Kevin Ash with Ellisdale.
Yeah, that maybe if that middle portion
A little less storefront and bring those columns down.
comes down a little bit,
Yeah.
just like you have on the other portions of the bays. Another thought I had was, and I guess it kind of echoes what John is saying about the height, And the way that the corners go straight up and down, and there's no, I know you have some modularity between, on the facades, and they're not really shown that because on these elevations, because the elevations are flat, obviously, but, and that'll help with some, what I'm about to say, but the way the top floor, and you describe it as almost a mansard, the way that meets the floor below it, it might help with the height of the structure if you consider insetting that somehow, so that it is it's not as up and down, and it kind of creates a, you know, almost like a cap to the building more than just a way that the color does. I assume that top floor is all units.
Yeah,
are they stacked
correct.
pretty much?
Yeah, as you say, all the bearing
Yeah.
stacks.
Yeah. So that it's a wood framing.
Wood frame, correct,
Okay.
type 3.
Okay. Yeah. So I understand that has some challenges to it.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good suggestion about trying to create some modulation recess.
Yeah, I was trying to think of different ways to do that. One way potentially would be, instead of having, you could have the bays on the corner and instead of inset from the corner, and that would create that same sort of effect.
Without changing bearing.
Without changing the bearing points at that point. Couple other comments. The garage door, it would be nice if that was more of a architectural garage door of some sort, just to kind of have a nice rhythm of, I mean, you're gonna have a lot of glass there. Be nice to incorporate some sort of glass into that door. And then finally, my other comment before I turn it over to Commissioner Ventola and his laundry list, it would be the garage facade facing the plaza. Would you consider doing something with that facade more than just clad it in with the precast brick? Kind of build that up into something that would almost be something that has some heft to it, creates a wall of some sort.
I'm sorry. Were you referring to the tower on the stair tower?
No,
I didn't hear the first
West
part.
elevation.
The west elevation.
Oh, okay.
But, Mark, just to let you, that's predominantly going to be covered up by the bud car.
Okay.
Yeah, unless
I
you're,
see.
yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to tell the relationship.
Yeah,
how
the
that's
bud
gonna-
car is like right directly in front of that.
It's essentially right here.
So if it's, I was thinking from this view, I couldn't
Yeah,
really tell how
right.
that relationship is. But if it's seen from the plaza, it would be nice if it's not just just an open garage at that point.
Mhm.
Let me see if I got everything. I think those are my main comments. All in all, I think it's there's some very nice qualities to it. I think it does play well with the building across the street in terms of scale. I think I don't have a problem with the height. I just would like something to rhythmically change the kind of the rectilinear effect of the vertical corners there.
I apologize. I'm not sure if the protocol or the etiquette is to
No,
respond
jump
to
in.
any comments.
Yes, please, absolutely.
I appreciate that. So, Ms. LaFrance, you mentioned specifically about maybe being too modern and maybe taking some of the cues from other buildings. I just wanted to mention, and I don't at all mean to criticize or disparage the building across the street, but we felt like there was maybe a little bit too much going on across the street, and that's why we chose to not break it down into smaller components, but still wanted to have a cadence. And then as far as the specific comment about being too modern, I would just say that at this scale, this elevation doesn't show the detail, the brick detail that we intend to have. And so we certainly, if I zoom in here a little bit, if I can pull it off, yeah, there's certainly an intention to have, I messed it up. Try that again.
So there's more depth than I'm perceiving because it's a flat drawing. I understand.
Yeah, so there is an intention to have a water table with some detail, some specifically brick relief where the brick piers come down to the ground. Also at the floor lines, there's some intention to have some brick detailing, whether it's a soldier course or some detail there. And then this cornice, it's painted the same color because it's either going to be brick where we sort of pick up on some more historic detailing of a brick cornice, or it's going to be a detailed cornice that is either a composite material or something that is painted to match to sort of tie into the brick. But either way, it's intended to have a shadow, to have some detailing in it. So I would say it's not our intention to create a modern building. We do want to have some contemporary touches, but I think we want to pick up on brick detailing for sure.
I understand. And may I, before you go?
Absolutely.
I forgot to ask, had you considered the possible noise from the train crossing, and how are you handling that from the rear of the building?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Actually, the financing that Kevin and his
to do a
team.
noise study.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is, as Steve pointed out, in the rear of the building, we do have windows there, but they're not through windows because of that noise, because that's the closest elevation to the tracks. Part of the design that Steve and his team came up with is putting that garage in the rear that really helps buffer that noise. We do have higher STC rated windows on the upper levels where the garage doesn't block that sound. So in our full noise study, there are some noise constraints with higher STC rated windows in certain areas that we have to put in.
Yeah, from my experience, the higher you go, if there's nothing between you and the
Yeah,
train,
it's direct sound right to it.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
interesting, it's not the MARC train, it's the CSX trains that roll through, and there's like 7 per night. And it's, and living at a mass transit location has its pluses and minuses. And so, but we are combating that with sound attenuation measures.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And you guys can come back and say anything else that you can think of along the way as well. The STC, sound transmission coefficient, or for those windows, are they going to be triple pane? I'm just curious. Not that it matters to us.
I mean, there's lots of different
reviewers.
ways to accommodate that, but vinyl windows do have, some of the highest STC rated windows.
But are they going to be triple glazed? I'm just curious.
That hasn't been finally designed, but we do have
just
a
curious.
requirement to meet. But
Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, do you know the height of the building across the street? Is it a 6-story as well?
It was like 4.
4, okay.
Or no, it's 4 above the retail.
4
so-
over 1. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
5.
So it's 5, okay, and then this one's going to be 6. Okay, there's a big difference between 4 to 6.
No,
and
5 to 6.
I think 5 to 6 is okay. It is much taller than I guess anything out there, but 1-story difference isn't that big of a deal, I guess. First and foremost, I want to say I like a lot of what you guys are showing. I think this is going to be a very good looking building. I think it's going to be a nice addition to the city. All right, now that that's been said.
Here it comes.
Now, it's all minor stuff. Actually, everything I'm going to say is minor. But I do want to relay it. And then I'll say also another compliment. I love the blade that you're putting on the side.
Yeah.
That's going to be stunning. I love visual activity as you're walking through cities, and that's going to be really
Part of
great.
working with the city, we were tasked with trying to find interactive ways to connect the plaza to this property. And, that art illuminating those back stairs, which are really it's a big connective point. It was a way to bring a lot of focus to kind of the back of the site. And so with illumination and public art, and then also it ties to the garage. And part of the planning staff, one of the recommendations was to leave the opening to the garage, to the plaza, even though that's not the dedicated accessible route, it's probably the most convenient. So we are trying to create as much connectivity to the plaza as possible.
Very good, very good. And I love the idea that you're opening it up to a competition. That's terrific to get
Yeah.
the city residents involved. Would be wonderful.
Yeah, there's going to be different artists from all over the country that are going to try to compete to get their
Wonderful.
artwork to be up on there.
Wonderful. As far as signage is concerned, I agree with Robert that it is a question that I have, or something that we should, that you guys should take seriously as far as putting requirements on it. So one thing I'm wondering is, did you guys think that these things should all be channel letters versus light boxes?
I think we actually, if I'm not mistaken, the design guidelines prohibit light boxes.
Wonderful. Well, then I personally am fine if the any of the franchisees want to use their own channel letters. I think that visually is acceptable from place to place to place. I think that's just fine as long as they're channel letters. All right, so now for my thoughts of things that I would like to see you guys consider. And that is, first and foremost, I think the garage on the west elevation, Mark brought this up, and it was a concern of mine as well. I know you guys said that the Bud car is going to be in front of it, blocking a bit of it, but when I look how nice you designed your building, and then I see, and all the money you spent on it, and then I see your garage, I believe there's missed opportunities for you to address what the garage should look like. To me, if you go to some of the, how shall I say it, more areas of older cities which don't have much money to spend, they'll do garages like this. But in your particular case, I don't think it's helping your building by minimizing the quality of design in there. The linear planes is always going to look like a garage. And I'm not saying you have to hide the nature of the garage, because it's always going to be a garage. You need a garage. I love seeing parking garages when you're looking for a place to park. But there's things that you can do to make it, dress it up. One thing is perhaps having, instead of just one big giant opening between them, maybe just punched openings. I mean, not in small ones, but large. Just break up the massing. Maybe you have 3 large giant openings on that second floor. And then maybe have some treatment. And I'm not saying this is a suggestion, but something like they have fencing that has the growth areas on it, you know, like the vegetation on it. Just something to break it up, because particularly on this west elevation, this is right by the park. People are going to be near it and around it, and I think it should be addressed. Next then is a question. If we look at 302, Chris, if you're able to pull that up on the screen, 302, not 302A.
The black and white.
Yeah, black and white. Underneath the retail signs, the words retail, page 302A.
I don't.
Which sheet are you talking about?
302A, it was the black and white west elevation.
It's not in it.
So you're talking about the 302, the...
302A, yeah, okay. If you're able to put it on the screen so the audience can see it, that'd be fine, but I don't really care. Underneath the word retail on the left side, I'm talking about the west elevation, the left side and the right side, it looks to be a triangle, and perhaps, I think those are awnings, but I cannot, when I was looking at these photos and looking at the side views, which they don't show up on the side views, what is the configuration of those awnings?
Yes, so it is an awning, and it doesn't show up on the side views of the elevation, that's correct. But that is the intention. And so the desire there on the north elevation that faces Diamond, actually, because of the grade change, that actually becomes the signage opportunity for some of the retail tenants. On this elevation, and I can jump there in a moment so you can see that more clearly, but on this elevation, there's an opportunity for both an awning and a retail signage above that. And so the configuration is just meant to be a canvas awning that provides an opportunity for some outdoor seating, or an outdoor, if this is a restaurant, perhaps an outdoor mingling area or bar standing area.
The triangle portion is not clear to me. So is that a hip roof? Or is that a shed roof, or is it a hip in front of a shed?
I see what your question is. It's actually just a single slope. The triangle is more of it's used on ramps to denote a change in grade, and so we're using it here to just point out that as an awning, it's just one single slanted surface.
Okay.
I see what your question is now. Yeah.
Okay. Next then is.
Yeah, the middle one is actually.
No, I see that. Great. The next issue is your roof. Very nice design. I like it, but if I'm not mistaken, it's only a 312 pitch. Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct.
How shall I say this kindly? Pitches, in my experience, whenever I had to work on a project that was a very tight budget, one of the things that developers usually do is they hit the pitch of the roof. And I don't think I've ever done a project in my career where we went down that low. I find 612 and 512 to be very modest. 212, I would almost consider it like a flat roof. So my question is there any opportunity to increase the pitch? Maybe not on the overall mass, because that's where a lot of your money is, but certainly on the cross gables, the sides. If you can increase those to 512, it'll be, I think it'll help you a lot. A big key here to you is, from the street level, because there's such low pitches, you're not even going to see the roofs for most part.
It was actually kind of what we were trying to achieve.
Oh, okay.
Short of, because it is 6 stories, not to create any more height difference, so that cornice line really reads more flat roof than anything, because you'd have to get really far away to actually
Right.
even see
Right.
those, because
Well, I think your roof is strong. I think it's a good element. I think it gives it a very residential feel, which it is, versus commercial. Commercials are mostly flat roofs, residential are pitched roofs, et cetera, et cetera. So I would encourage you guys to have a higher pitched roof. Even if you raise the main roof to 512, that's still low pitch. Go ahead. You
I
say
disagree.
it. Throw it in. Well, no, say, because
Yeah, I
that's
actually,
what this is all about.
I actually, I mean, 312 with a shingle roof is sometimes problematic. So I almost would like to go.
Oh, you're saying go to a flat
Go
roof
flat if you're
completely?
gonna do it,
Oh, okay.
it was kind of the
okay.
trade-off of,
Right.
to try to achieve that.
312 meets code, but that's about as bare minimum as you can get, so. Again, food for thought.
Okay.
I
all right.
think actually, I just wanted to point out, I think it's an interesting comment and something we should look at, and I like the suggestion that if we are able to do it, potentially if we were to do it somewhere, that just on this elevation, that you're on the top elevation,
Because it is a hip roof,
you could
do
create
it on one
a
side
hierarchy
versus the other.
of the two roofs.
Okay, very good, all righty. Next line item is, it was already mentioned, I think it was perhaps a few times on the entry features. One of the things that I was seeing when I was looking at it, particularly when I was looking at the colored elevations, which I guess would be 303A is what I've got on my reference on my notes here. Yeah, 303A. Not that it really matters which one, but in each of your elevations, your primary elevations, it looks to me that you are doing such a wonderful job on the, you guys know the term base, shaft, and capital on typical, traditional buildings, which is what you have. But the base part in most of these elevations seems to me to be not as, I'll use the word ornate, as the other parts of the building. Maybe not ornate, but not as much attention to your entries than you are on the other parts of your building. And I love the other parts of the building. I love the detailings that you guys are doing. But I'm almost thinking that I'm not saying the entries were an afterthought, because I know they're not, but they're not reading as the most important. Now, in this particular elevation, which I think is the south elevation, you do have those 2 entries that are prominent, which I see that you're doing, and it works. But I would give more highlight to the other ones, because those are storefronts, right?
Those are,
So most of the storefront that you're seeing there are the walk-up units.
Okay.
The one place I think you have a very valid point is that this is the back entrance to the lobby, and that if you came out of the garage, that wouldn't immediately be apparent that that's where you should go. So I think
I think you also
attention
to
there.
cross-reference our signage package, because a lot of those things do direct people to those locations.
But I
I
guess
think you could emphasize that a little bit more.
I think whether it's bringing some more solid piers flanking
Yeah.
down, because I think that comment earlier about, I think it was
I
your
think
comment.
Mark's comment was spot on, yeah.
Yeah, bringing down this. I think the first thing I mentioned is we intend to create a masonry building that comes down to the ground.
Right.
And here we don't have it.
Right.
Enough of that.
Quite honestly, as we sit here and talk, I mean, there actually might be a little too much glass for those
Yeah.
first floor residential, and not emphasizing the entrance to the building enough, so bringing some more of that down there. Just to point out, those residential units are really kind of cool along that walkway. They're really high ceiling loft units, so those units have 18-foot high ceilings. So we thought we really want to create pet-friendly environments, and people that want to be able to take their dog right in and out, but also have a real true loft living, here in Gaithersburg. I mean, it's an opportunity to have something really cool and unique. And
That's right.
as we were looking and figuring out that first floor and bringing those into it. I thought it was a real cool product for the market.
Agreed, agreed. One of the things to continue on the thought is I would like to see more architectural features on your entrances. Doesn't have to be ornament, but something that highlights.
Maybe pulling from the train station architecture and kind of incorporating that maybe around some of those entrances.
Any of the thoughts that you have that emphasizes it would be something that I think will be welcome. When I'm looking at the south elevation, your two main entries there, I was wondering, my thoughts are, I see that you're using a cornice feature as an element to cap off each of your materials, which I think is very successful. But I did blow-ups on these, and I don't believe that you have a cornice feature having the top of those two smaller bump outs at the base.
That's a good point, yeah. So
next then is, and this is hard to see because I don't think I'm not able to blow it up on my screen, but there appears to be in front of the storefront windows horizontal fencing. And now that you say it's for private residences, I now understand what that is. Now, I asked Chris earlier in the day to send me a plan because I did not understand what they are about. That is, I get it, they're a safety factor or preventing people from going beyond that area. But there's a couple of questions. One is, it almost appears to me that they only go up to the height of the door. Do they not go all the way up to structure? Second is, how far off of the windows are they? Because I couldn't find them in the plan. And then third is a kind of a comment. It appears to me that they're only up to the door height, and these horizontal lines look like they're strong enough to act as ladders. So I think people would hop over those in a heartbeat if there is a space beyond it, or if it's up against the windows, that's another thing. But is there like a little patio area or a walk area between the grates and the windows?
no, it's
So they're right on
there's
the
a
windows
walkway.
themselves?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just asking, is it right on the windows, or is there a gap?
It's right on the windows,
Oh,
and
okay.
really what it's intended to be, more than anything, is creating some privacy for those walk-up units. It's not necessarily security. I don't think we're thinking of them as security bars, but something to create some surface that catches your eye before your eye goes directly into the unit and into the living space inside. So the idea was to create some kind of surface that you would see first. The exact detailing of that or the nature of that, I think it could be vertically oriented if we have a concern about ladder effect, and the actual makeup of that is still to be determined, but we want to provide privacy for those ground floor walk-up units.
So those bars are right on the window frames? They're attached to the window frames?
Just right there.
Well, they allow for an operable window to open, so they may be 6 inches.
Okay.
They may be 6 inches out in front of or
I see.
proud of the glass.
Okay, all right. I also noticed that you have awning windows. Are those going to have limiters on them? Or will they be able to open up the full depth? Because they look very tall, which means they'll open up very far. But it sounds like, and I know there's no grates in front of those, it sounds like you're not opening up very deep.
So I should have made the distinction. The grating or whatever that device is actually only at the bedroom.
Right.
And then the living room where you would actually enter, and then we sort of the cadence here is from this intermediate pier to this intermediate pier is living room, and then from here to here is bedroom space. So that's why we felt like that the window in the living room doesn't need necessarily the same amount of privacy. And then to answer your question about the awning, honestly, we were trying to delineate the fact that the ground floor window system is going to be a little bit different than the windows that are on the units above, but I haven't really had that conversation with Kevin yet about whether or not those are awning windows or casement windows or even sliders. Yeah, so
okay.
That's a detail we still need to figure out.
And I think to your guys' point that, bringing some of that facade down back here might, reduce some of that glass, which helps, strengthen the base and, put the capital on that entrance. I mean, there's still some detailing to work out through here. So any of your suggestions?
Those horizontal bands, they appear, at least on the drawing, to be white, in front of a black window frame. Would you be interested in or entertain the idea of making those black as well? Just a thought. I mean, visually, I think it would read as a nice grid, which is going to come to a point about colors next, or a few things down. The next thought I have is for the materials themselves. Are you guys able to, and I'm not sure if it's ever going to come before us again. Chris, do you know if it will be?
It will not. Yep.
The bud car
Doesn't,
is the
won't?
only thing.
The bud car will?
No, I mean, the materials for the construction, is this, so it won't ever come before us
Correct.
again? Okay, then I won't address that. Next and last then, I know you like to hear that phrase, is, like I said, I really like your design, and I think there's a lot of very nice things, there's a lot of visual activity. But one of the things that I was looking at is it seems as if there were maybe one or two more different colors than maybe needed. And what I mostly mean is that I counted all the different ways you're handling your facade. You have fiber cement for dark gray panels, and they're over 3 different colors of fiber cement colored siding. The medium gray, the white, and I think there's a dark gray. And then that is over a rust-colored brick, and that is over rust-colored CMU. And then you have the white ladders or the black ladders in front of the black storefront and the black awnings, and then you have the white brick entries. That's at least 8 different items. Generally, I mean, you know, early on in school they say 2. Now, I've never agreed to that. But 8 might be a little bit more than you need. I'm wondering if wherever you have white, maybe just go with your taupe color. Again, just a suggestion. And that's it. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you very much for the comments.
Yeah.
Okay, and you guys want to throw in anything new?
That's it.
No,
Thank
no,
you
yeah,
very much.
we're excited about it. so.
Yeah, it's gonna look great.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for your comments. Definitely can put to use some of this.
Good luck.
Very good. Congratulations. Thank you. Particularly since you don't have to come back here.
Not that we don't mind.
All righty. Next then, Chris, I guess we have the tax credit applications, which is always my favorite.
So our application tonight for 10 Brookes, it is contributing to the Brooks, Russell, and Walker Historic District. The applicant seeks tax credits for roofing work. No historic area work permit was required because the work was considered in-kind replacement of the asphalt shingles on the main building and the garage as well, and the reapplication of sealant to 2 sections of metal roof on the main building as well. So this is showing a before photo, and here's another before photo, and these are the 2 metal roof areas that I referenced where sealant was applied. And here's a close-up in the front. And here are after photos. So as you can tell, asphalt shingles were replaced in kind with asphalt shingles on both the main building and the garage. And here's the after for the garage. And that's it.
And so they did nothing to the metal roofing. I didn't see any.
No, they just applied the sealant to it,
Okay, great.
which I checked, and they had that before.
Excellent.
I thought I saw, maybe not in these exhibits, but I thought in maybe another part of the package where there was a view that showed the garage and maybe the house with some other houses in the background. Do you recall that?
I can't
in the
recall. I
package?
don't think, unless it's this photo.
No, but you can leave that up. It'll reinforce my point. The original roof was brown, and this now it looks like it's a grayish. When I was looking at the photos of the adjacent neighboring buildings, they all had gray. So I thought that this thing is going to go so well in the neighborhood next to those. So I personally don't have any thoughts. So we started with you, Robert, last. Why don't we start with you, Mary Jo? If you have any thoughts, we can go.
No, actually, I approve.
All right. Mr. Mark?
No issues.
Okay. Mr. John?
None at all.
All right, and I don't have any, and so, I guess, do we then, Chris, vote on
Yes.
whether we approve?
We just,
Okay.
we certify it, yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
so I guess, can someone make a motion to recertify?
Sure. With regard to HIST 7831-2018, I would move that we as a body certify this as eligible for participation in the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Tax Credit Program.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope, okay, so that's 5-0. Good, wonderful, thank you. All right, next then is Preservation Month Award discussions. So would you like to provide any thoughts on that for us?
Sure.
Open it up?
At our last meeting in January, the HDC expressed the desire to present a Preservation Month Award to 11 Cedar, which is on the screen now, at the May meeting, which is Preservation Month. So I also provided a list of projects the HDC reviewed in the past year for your reference. In my opinion, nothing here rises to the level of an award.
Are you sure
unless-
the trees and the sheds
Well.
do not? Okay, all right, I stand corrected.
The
So
retroactive
unless
trees.
the commission feels
The
differently,
retroactive tree.
we can proceed with asking those involved with 11 Cedar to attend the May meeting. So if we're all in agreement, we can proceed from here. Again, most of these reviews over the past year are tree removals and fences and relatively simple projects, at least the ones that would be eligible for the awards.
Yes, and there are some ongoing projects that may be eligible
That's
next
true.
year that are not ready yet.
That's true.
Were there any projects that we were talking about in prior years that we said, well, we should wait for it to come online? I only remember us talking about one, and I can't remember which one it was, but I thought we all said, yeah, when that's done, we might want to do that, but I can't remember which one.
Did we already do an award last year for the log house,
Mhm.
right?
Yes,
So
that was
might
last
have
year.
been one of ones that were.
That wasn't in my
reviewed for.
recollection. Not that it matters too much.
Now, another property we could consider for an award is, and forgive me, I can never remember addresses, the property on 355 across the street from St. Martin's Church on the Dennis side of the street that we approved for them to shrink the porch so they could have some more interior space.
Yes.
And the project is complete.
Oh,
Have we
okay.
ever thought about awarding them for taking our suggestions, even though it was a courtesy review, I believe?
Right, I think I know the project you're referencing where they enclosed the porch, or the porch was already enclosed.
They enclosed the porch, but they kept the elements of the porch on the outside,
Okay.
so it still had some depth and some architectural
So what I-
interest.
Like one with columns.
Yes.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, I think I can.
Now,
I
there's a
can-
project next door to it that is not complete yet, so again, something we can't do anything until we
Mhm.
see it
Okay.
completion.
What I could do is look into that project a
Yeah, I
little bit more.
apologize, I can't remember the address, but it just dawned on me.
And, well, I do have what I believe you're
Yeah,
referencing on
there
the
it is.
screen here.
Yep.
Whoop.
Oh, yeah.
And they took
I
our
love that
suggestions.
they did. They were so sincere
Right?
about it, and they really were not just saying, "Yeah, we're gonna,
Mhm,
we'll do it." They wound
mhm.
up doing it. So yeah, that's not a bad idea at all. And the architecture looks like it's been the original building has been maintained. The historicity is still there, and the elements that they added look like they can be removed down the line if need be. So I think it's a great idea. If you guys are all for it, yeah. One of the
Those
things.
honestly are the only two I can think of. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
well,
please.
I didn't mean to interrupt. One of the things is we've always said that it has to be unanimous. I'm open to it not being unanimous, but I'm also open to it being that way if you guys all want it to still be unanimous. That is, everybody has to say yay to it and no nays. Is that something you guys still want to do?
I think it maintains the specialness of the award.
I like that idea. All right, okay. So do you guys want to say we'll vote on that? Actually, Chris, what do we do at this point? Do we vote tonight?
No,
or-
you wouldn't necessarily vote. I think just if you're all in agreement, we can move forward and reach out to the owner and the architect.
Okay.
All
And
right,
see if
before we
they're
move into
available.
that, let me
Yes.
ask Chris one.
Sure.
31 Walker, where are we on that? Is
Thank
that
you.
finished?
I was gonna ask that.
31 Walker, as of, I believe, Tuesday, passed their final inspection.
Wow. Good.
Okay.
So they-
Because much as I have hassled that man,
I love where you're going with
I
this.
think he actually deserves.
I agree wholeheartedly.
But it has to be a complete project, and it sounds like it is.
Yeah.
I love that idea. What do you guys think?
I
Let's
did
go
see
down.
that
I
the
thought we already,
handrails were
why
up.
do I remember already doing that?
Awarding that?
They did
that
receive,
project?
he has received a preservation award in the past, pre-restoration.
Pre-restoration.
Not on that building, though, is it?
Yes.
No, same building, yeah,
Really?
in 2013 or
was-
14.
So what did he do to earn that award? Because obviously
It was just
us.
saving,
Just
just the act of saving it.
Act of
Purchasing it.
Oh, well, okay. Well, I'm still open to
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
for an award of the final because
Besides,
he's.
I think I'd give him a heart attack if I made the motion myself.
That is so true. But the other thing too is preservation and post-preservation is only a few $100,000 difference. Right?
And
So-
saw those handrails and made me think of you, Dean.
Okay,
They're up.
there you go. Very nice.
I think
Very
I'd be a
nice,
little
very
bit
nice.
more
Should
for
go
that
back.
than the one that was presented to us.
Well, that's again,
previously, actually.
you have the opportunity. We're all still saying it has to be unanimous. So are you saying you don't put in a unanimous vote on that one?
Not on this one.
Okay, well then,
And I was
Go ahead.
kind of grabbing at straws, but I wanted to tell Robert, because you haven't been here as long as some of the other members, but originally when we discussed it with the idea that there would be different parameters for reasons why we gave awards. So in that case, it would be an award for they're taking the advice, which they didn't have to, of a courtesy review, and it sort of reinforces that you did and look at this project that, you know.
there's not too many ways for us to say thank you for that.
Yeah.
And this might be the only way.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it originally came up. But we're not trying to override you.
No.
We just wanted you to
Just
know the
wanted to
reason
explain.
behind it. So you still have the opportunity to
Yeah.
vote your beliefs. So if you say nay, it's a nay.
And we don't have a limit on awards either.
No.
So that's the other thing. Some years,
We haven't had
as,
awards before.
as Chris just showed, we didn't have a whole heck of a lot to pick
Some
from.
there were
but-
zero.
But these are, in my opinion, are the three that we can if we want to.
So who are we going to invite to the next, we have to vote on the three, is that what we're gonna do tonight, or?
Not tonight, but Chris was gonna talk to the
Well-
Yeah, I can
the
see who's
residents.
available first.
Well, I mean, do we want to talk to the applicant if, for this particular one, if we're not all in favor of it?
Yeah, no,
That
we
is up
don't
to you.
want to. No, we do
No,
not want
that's
to,
just-
because that would be
Okay.
carried on a
So
stick.
let's
and
go
that-
through the ones
Yeah.
that have been discussed.
Okay, so,
Let's say Cedar, 31 Walk, yeah, all three, okay.
yeah, so,
Yeah.
I can say I'm fine with all three. Robert, what are your thoughts on this one? And feel free to say nay on it, we're not gonna learn.
I'll just say nay on it,
Okay.
maybe it's something I see Cedar every day too, but I see this too.
Okay.
I don't know, I mean, it's nice that they took the suggestion,
Yeah.
compared to those, I'm not very overwhelmed with
Okay,
this one.
no argument, all right, so then we have the other two, how about 31 Walker?
As John said, what he personally did to, but I think that and the suggestions, though, was kind of pulling teeth at times, but I'm impressed what he's done with that. And then, like I said, I live in the neighborhood near Cedar, and that was complete. If you had seen what it was before, the work they did, there's a point there I didn't think anything was going to happen. It's unbelievable, so I'm all for that one too.
Great, all right, anybody has any
That one's actually
nays?
for sale, I believe.
I know, yeah, I'll tell you what I saw the price was after the meeting.
Well, it's public, so.
Yeah. So does anybody have any nays on the two remaining?
No?
Okay, no, wonderful. So is that now official, Chris, or do you still
Yes.
need to get back to us?
No, I will
Wonderful, okay.
carry that forward.
Fantastic.
All right, next and last is, do we have an update from staff on the preservation element of the master plan update?
We
Are
do.
we supposed to vote tonight?
Not necessarily a vote.
Okay.
But I'll get to that. So the Planning Commission and the Mayor and City Council held a joint public hearing for the preservation element of the master plan on February 20th, and thanks to Commissioners Ventola and LaFrance for attending that. That draft has been revised and posted to the city website to reflect comments from the meeting and comments solicited from government agencies. So in your packet and on the screen is the most recent draft of the element with the memo that describes what was changed from the joint public hearing, We anticipate this draft will go before the Planning Commission for recommendation at its April 18th meeting and before the Mayor and City Council at its May 21st meeting. So I have on the screen the memo reflecting the comments. If anyone would like any more information on a particular comment, but what we're hoping to gain tonight is your support. So if you're in agreement with the most recent draft of the element, staff will draft a letter reflecting your position, and it will be signed by the chair, and we will have it available to the mayor and city council as well as the planning commission when they vote on recommending approval for the master plan element.
Okay, I guess we can just open up discussion on that, and I guess we start with Robert. Your thoughts on the changes that the most recent changes that they proposed?
I didn't have too many issues with them. Sorry, I had to read it again. I was all jump. I read it before. No, I mean, I didn't have too many issues with it. Are we going to get, this isn't the last iteration of this, correct?
This is the last iteration.
This is the very last one?
Yes. And what I could do, if you would like, I can go through each of these comments in the report if you feel that would be helpful.
And
Sure. Perhaps it might.
I think everybody
Sure.
should go over it again.
So let me pull up
Refresh.
the master plan.
I thought a lot of it was punctuation and changing.
That's the way.
When I read through these, I don't know, looks like 18, 20 items, there was nothing in there that I had any concern whatsoever on.
So
Nothing.
on this page, we revised it to reflect the officer elections. On this page, we added, and we'll get to this more later, it used to be just identification. It's now identification and designation. Page 2, this sentence was cut off here. So we continued the sentence where it says their preventative wellness strategies. That was cut off, so we continued that. On page 4, a reference was added to objectives and action items at the beginning of the second paragraph. That was at the request of a planning commissioner, so as detailed in the objectives and action items. On page 7, an entire paragraph on certified local governments at the top of the page. It used to be right above qualified review commission. That was removed because it was redundant. We already addressed it in this paragraph here. On page 8, 2 sentences were added under the survey section to explain the Maryland Inventory of Historic Properties. That was at the request of the Maryland Historical Trust, which wanted more detail on exactly what the Maryland Inventory of Historic Properties constitutes. Also on this page, we added a sentence at the end of identification and designation, the sidebar at the bottom, to explain that historic designation requires evaluation according to established criteria and a process for approval. So that was just adding more detail. The title of this map was revised. That was a Maryland Historical Trust comment, so it was changed to Maryland Inventory of Historic Properties. On page 10, the designation process subsection was added. So this is all new. And it has 2 paragraphs, as you can see, and they explain the process for designation in the city, either the local level or the National Register of Historic Places. Also on this page, the sidebar text was changed. It used to say filters out properties in the first sentence, and now it says can serve as a useful tool in identifying properties, so that was the change there. On page 11, on the new survey techniques and review, subheader was changed to new designation techniques. So this paragraph used to reference surveys. We felt it was more appropriate to talk about designation instead of just surveys. On page 14, the new Sustainable Communities Tax Credit subheader was changed to Maryland Heritage Structure Rehabilitation Tax Credit. and its associated text better clarifies who is eligible for the credit. So that was changed as a comment from the Maryland Historical Trust. They changed the name of that tax credit program. On this page, page 15, the time frame for the federal historic preservation tax credit was changed. It used to be the tax credit was distributed all at once, and now with the new tax credit bill that recently went through Congress and signed by the president, it's now distributed over 5 years. On page 17, the Maryland Historical Trust was added to the list of preservation partners. And page 18, the headers on this graphic were revised to make everything more consistent. We used to have the dates in parentheses, or the dates in front, and then the title of the section in parentheses after. So we just made this all more congruent. And moving to page 23. The status of NIST's National Register of Historic Places eligibility was corrected to reflect its current status. We listed that it was on the National Register. It's been determined eligible, and they are in the process of seeking designation, but it's not official yet. And moving to page 33. The Ascension House used to be on this map, but it should not have been on that map, and we will get to that later. A new map was created just for that. Because on page 40 it gets a map of its own because it was designated since the previous preservation element, the existing element, which we are now updating. And moving on to page 45. The Observatory Heights and Realty Park were added to potential historic resources map to reflect the corresponding text. We mentioned them as potential historic resources, but we didn't have this on the map, so we added both Observatory and Realty Park. Jumping down to page 60. And the introduction paragraph was removed. The previous one was removed and was replaced with these two new paragraphs that better reflect how the preservation objectives and action items are organized and will be utilized. And finally, on page 62, under the management section, staff approvals are already codified. So there was no need to introduce text amendments, which it previously stated in this bullet point. So now it just simply says, encourage efficient review of changes to historic resources by staff or consent reviews for clearly defined categories of work item. So any reference to text amendments were removed from that bullet point. Okay. So that is everything.
Wonderful.
Very good.
Very exciting.
Excellent.
Very exciting.
A dramatic reading.
It was. I have a real quick question for you, Chris. Is that
Sure.
the Maryland Historical Trust, how did they receive the element overall? Did they like it? Did
Yes,
they think
they
it was...
were. The Maryland Historical Trust and Maryland Department of Planning were overall very complimentary. The
Okay,
Maryland
good.
Historical
That's
Trust said
wonderful.
that they would like to use this as a reference for other communities.
How about that?
Wonderful.
How about that?
Excellent. Good
But I
question.
still didn't see anybody's authorship in here. I don't know why you're still not putting authorship.
It's on the front. We have
It
a number of
was? I
staff
missed that
members that
then.
had a hand
Oh,
in
well, I
it.
missed that then. Because I think you should get
We're
credit. I
down
think you
here.
guys should get the credit. It's really phenomenal.
Thank you.
And may I ask, how is the process of historic designation? Is it nationally for Summit Hall?
The National
We're going?
Register, after we put to bed the element update, we
Yeah.
will now turn our attention to finishing the National Register nomination for Summit Hall.
Excellent,
Wow,
thank
wow.
you.
Very good.
Fantastic.
Alrighty, next on the list is something called From Commission 106 Chestnut
Yes.
Tree.
This is
There we
my
go.
little
Thank you. Mystery solved.
slideshow
Mystery solved, all
that
right.
I asked Chris kindly, and I hope the last minute pictures yesterday were not too difficult to incorporate. 10 a.m. on March 2nd, Friday morning, 5 minutes after the trash truck left, a 300-year-old red oak tree fell across Chestnut Street and exploded in my front yard.
Oh my God, this is pictures
That's
from your
my front
door?
yard, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And it's, I think the circumference, oh, now this one here is on the property that's at the corner of 104 and 102 Chestnut. And although it didn't fall on its own, during the terrible windstorm, the root base was jumping. And so Pepco spoke with the owners and asked their permission to take it down before it came down.
Good.
The first tree at 106 Chestnut Street took down an entire telephone pole and ripped the top off the one up on the corner. And tore the electrical box off of 104 Chestnut Street completely, and all of our lines were down. Now, the good news is the electric had gone out already. Thank God. So there was
That's
no
true.
arcing,
That's
there was
true.
no fire.
Right.
As I sent Chris some pictures. Also, I have a nice collection of historic pictures from the neighborhood. And there's a few of them that show the tree that fell in my yard in the early 1900s.
Wow.
And the tree that actually exists behind the Martha Meme house is still there. And you can see it about 5 or 10 feet above the Martha Meme house in
Look at the roll.
the late
Sepia.
in the late 1800s. This is the famous one all of you have seen before, but I'll just pass it around. And sadly, that may come before us someday because the tree that
you
fell in
take us
my
somewhere,
yard.
Joe?
I have no, I did not. No. I was lucky enough to get some copies. This is the foundation of my house at 105 Chestnut Street before houses went onto it.
What a hoot.
And
It's amazing. Look at the pump. Look
I
at the pump.
didn't,
Wow.
I did not put all of them.
These
You
are
know,
a
these
treat.
I
are
see a
really
safety
great. So
violation here.
Chris, I promised you these for a long time.
Yes.
And what I can tell you
These are amazing.
is that I do have a CD
Oh, great.
with these
Oh,
on
great.
it, but not everything that I have. So that's a good start.
Yes.
So I will give this
Thank
to you
you.
tonight. But yes, sadly, and now this is that tree as a seedling right here.
Goodness.
And that's a picture of my front yard. This little boy's probably a Bell family.
Oh, my.
And behind him is the tree that fell in my yard.
Amazing.
So,
Wow, what
yeah.
treasures, what treasures.
Yeah.
How about that?
So unfortunately, though, we're gonna be seeing a lot
Is there a
more of
date on
this.
the back?
The last tree that Chris brought up, I counted the rings very quickly with a fingernail, and I got up to 185 years. I know it was at least
man.
200 years old.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow,
And the one that fell in my yard, probably 3.
wow.
But I haven't had a chance to count the rings of that yet because thankfully, Philip Wessel is working with our neighbors at 106 to have a sawmill come in
Oh.
and take that beautiful specimen, and it will have a new life
Oh.
as something else.
Some piece of
Some
furniture.
furniture or
maybe.
something,
Wow, very
something.
nice. I'll bet you that makes you very happy.
It does. It does. It's been a community effort. So someday, we'll do a different slideshow of little photos that I
That'd be
have.
nice.
I was very lucky. Mr. Lemuel Bell, many years ago, was driving by my house, and I asked him if I could help him. And the next thing you know, I'm getting the pictures that he had.
Oh,
So I was very lucky.
That's so cool.
And then my neighbor down the street before she moved gave me the pictures that the original owners dropped off to her and gave her copies of, and those are the ones that need
What's
to
the
get
oldest,
to you.
what's the oldest picture you think you have in your collection so far?
That would be,
Like
the Martha Meme
what's
house
the
is
year?
the oldest house in the neighborhood, and
I'm saying that photo, how long, how? when
I'm
was
thinking
it
late
taken?
1800s
That
because
photo's from the 1800s?
my dear friend Chris, who's come to some of the meetings, has an app on his phone. Don't you love young people? And you can take a picture of it, and the app will tell you what the clothing they're wearing is, what
Oh,
year.
man.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Because the guy looks a little uncomfortable there to me.
They didn't smile much in those days for pictures,
Well, you
did
know,
Well, he
they?
sometimes had to wait a while.
You gotta wait for
Actually,
about 15
actually,
minutes.
And if it was June or
You
July.
guys have seen this. I mean, it's,
I
it used to
heard-
be hanging in here someplace.
I heard something
Yeah.
about that. There's a TV show on, you can't take it with you, on things that are given to, children and whatever, as far as the deceased handing on their properties. one question that came up is, why do people have such a stoic face in all of these early photos? And they gave 3 choices, but the answer was they were trying to mimic portraits, painted portraits at the time.
Oh, yeah, and it was so new. Photography was
Yeah.
so new.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
inheritance was the word I was looking for.
Well, it did, taking a portrait, because they quoted George Washington saying, you know, you would have to sit and sit and sit and sit. And he commented to one and said, as he had been president and he was used to it somewhat, he said, oh, you'll see I'm not like some of your other subjects. I'm rather used to sitting here and just letting you do your business. So
That's true. How about that? All right, does anybody have any other thoughts or questions
That was
or
kinda fun.
issues that they want to bring up?
I have one more
Yes,
thing.
sir.
Just a reminder that our annual CLG training will be held in this room on Tuesday, April 3rd. It starts at 7 p.m. The topic will be laws and procedure, and commissioners from Rockville and perhaps Washington Grove will be joining us.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
All righty,
Chris.
I move to adjourn. Do we
No,
have?
the chair can't
Wait.
No, I understand that, I understand that a chair can move. Now, is that bad advice?
no, you can. For closure, you can actually say, are there any other issues? And
Which
if
I
there are
did.
not, you actually don't have to make a motion. You can just say as chair, I adjourn.
Just get up and
We're
walk.
adjourned.
What do I say?
No, you could just say the meeting's adjourned.
Meeting's adjourned.